Sipping on a little coffee here, by the way. I've been drinking instant coffee lately.
Yeah.
Maxwell House, do not buy. Do not. Like, every other instant coffee I've had has been fine. This is terrible.
Yeah.
Like, garbage.
I mean, we got, like, Nescafe once, and that was fine. Like, it's just...
Yeah. Every other one's been fine. Like, I've had no... I keep buying instant coffee because I keep saying I'm going to stop after this. Like, I'm going to buy this jar.
Yep.
And then, like, because I'm like, okay, I'm out. And then when I'm out, I'm out. And then I'll be at the grocery store next time and be like, well, I'm almost out. Not quite ready to pull the plug.
Great.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with John Hines.
Hey there.
And we are back to talk some video games, just the two of us this week, and we're getting close to the end of the year here, and I'm running out of time on my resolution game here,
really
guys,
are.
and I'm not talking about it this week either. So I guess we're getting close. So I'll be getting to Hyper Light Drifter soon enough, but. That's if I can pull myself away from these PUNKCAKE games, because I just cannot stop. And I did, on a Save It for the Cast episode recently, I raved a little bit about Spectrum Forces, which had just come out when I recorded that little intro for that episode. And this is the latest, or it's the fifth game from PUNKCAKE. They might have another one out by this time, although they are taking November off to kind of get their back end kind of recalibrated, or not recalibrated. They're trying to bring all the games to Steam right now. They're only on itch.io, but they're just trying to like kind of streamline everything is the word I was looking for. But anyways, so this shmup, which I mentioned last week, but just to kind of quickly go over it, there's 3 planets that you have to pick from, that you can pick any 3 to start, kind of like Mega Man style, pick your stage. And then on any level, you can pick from one of 9 pilots, and you can have up to 3 pilots on any given stage, but you don't have to select 3. But clearing a stage and surviving with any of the pilots. So the gameplay works a lot like a Lazy Galaxy Rebel story, John, like where you're actually switching formations, although there's tons of different formations, whereas like each character kind of has a different formation assigned to them. And then like just all the different characters have such a different firepower, like all the different combos that you can use. So the game has tons of replayability in the sense that like I beat the game 3 times in a row the other day, but like, so like beating the game after you beat a level with a character. So like if after you beat a level, the character's either dead. So like let's say you clear the level with 2 of your 3 ships. If you decided to use all 3, you get 2 coins, and then the other pilot's dead. But the coins mean like, okay, that pilot is taking the rest of the day off. Like they're not going on the other missions. So like you're stuck to that pool of 9 at all times. But then they do have like challenge modes where it's like, you turn on this challenge mode and it's like random pilot, like you don't get to pick your pilots. It's all random every time. And you can turn on as many of the challenge modifiers as you want at once, which give you more coins. So like if you don't turn on any modifiers, you can get 9 coins max. Like if you clear all 3 stages using 3 pilots each, and then it gives you like a pilot ranking. Like, so when I got 7 coins, it gave me the Maniac ranking, which is awesome. And I really love how strategic the gameplay is too. Like, again, I mentioned all the different like weapon types or whatever that each ship has, but like you're also kind of, you have to turn around a lot, and there's no button press to do that. You're actually just like, it kind of works like Caro Blaster or other games where you like, if you're holding down the fire button and you're going backwards, you'll keep firing forwards, and kind of going in reverse essentially. But then if you're not firing, the ship will actually turn around, and then you'll start firing in the opposite direction. But then you have weapons that will only fire in the opposite direction that you're piloting your ship. Like it's just so cool, all the different variety, and I can't get enough. And especially the way they like layer in these challenges. And I said it when I was talking about Damocles Gaze when we talked about that on the podcast, and it's just how great they are at making their games. Like, again, I beat the game 3 times in a row the other day, and I am nowhere near putting this game down. Like, I fire it up almost every time. Number one, they're pretty quick runs. The levels are pretty short, and this one actually is not randomly generated. I thought it was at first, like the enemies spawning and whatnot, but it seems to be like you kind of like do. Like that's where the random kind of is a nice modifier, like the random pilot challenge, because like it does get to the point, at least for me, where like each of the 3 planets, I kind of have a set of 3 pilots that I kind of gravitate towards. Where like this is my best chance to get all 9 coins. which is what I've gone for. Like I said, I haven't really tried any of the challenges too much, but they're really cool. I mean, there's all types of stuff like bosses have plus 50% HP. Your bullets do half damage. Like there's all types of different modifiers you can change. So just another amazing game from PUNKCAKE, and I'm just never going to stop raving, so I'm sure I'll talk about the next one that they make. And I guess just real quick, since we're talking about a shmup, and this one's a vertically scrolling shmup. The last one is horizontally scrolling, which I didn't mention, but this game is called Viral Reload, and the developer actually sent a copy of this one to us just by, like, I think they said that they had just seen some of our stuff on, like, Twitter, and like, hey, my game looks like a game that you'll like, so if you want to give it a try. And it's only $5. I happened to look it up. I was like, oh, this is like a no-brainer. Like, it wasn't on my radar before they sent it to me, but I would have certainly picked it up if not. And it's like, it's my kind of game. You know, I love the high score, like arcade chasing, whatever. And there's basically just two ships to pick from. There's one that has like a homing attack, which obviously does a little bit less damage. And then the other ship that's just like a regular attack. And there's just a wave based set of, you get 3 lives, waves. I don't even think you can get a extra ship or extra life or anything like that. The other thing that's kind of cool too is like if you die to a wave of enemies, the whole thing kind of resets. Like all the enemies kind of fly off the screen and then the wave restarts. Okay. So you do have to kind of clear them. But they're really quick waves. It's not like you're fending them off for probably not even 15 seconds. I mean, the waves are really quick, and it does get to the point where, like, okay, I'm good enough at this game. You can actually start at like wave 10 or wave 15. I think you can start as late as wave maybe even 30, I want to say. Like, you can, every 10 waves, there's like a little mini boss that comes along, and it's just really fun. There's like a dash mechanic, which is not anything super inventive, but you can dash through the bullets. You can't dash forward, though, or anything like that. You can only dash side to side. And then it kind of has like a restriction of like there's almost like an invisible wall. You can really only move up, kind of like old school arcade games like Galaga or whatever, where like the ship can only move up like a very small, like at the bottom, like 20% of the screen or whatever. Mm-hmm. You're kind of restricted to that area, even though there's nothing like stopping you physically from moving forward. Right. It just kind of like doesn't allow you to. But yeah, it just got really charming graphical style, really great. Like I think I've said before on the podcast a long time ago that I wasn't the biggest fan of like those CRT retro filters that they add to games, but they've come a long way. Like it looks awesome on my screen. Like it's like an instant. Like at first I was like, this doesn't look right. It didn't have the filter on it first when I booted the game up, and the screenshots I had seen, I was like, why does this game doesn't look quite right? And then I checked in the options, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. It really adds that extra flair, and the music as well. I forget who the artist is, but I'll tag him in the episode description. But the music in the game is just top notch. So yeah, really, if you're into shmups at all, Spectrum Forces, if you're not a member of their Patreon for PUNKCAKE, is only $6 as well. So 2 just super cheap games that can't recommend enough, especially if you like arcade shmups. But John, you've been dipping into the latest Nintendo offerings on their, I guess it's all online, I guess. Yep. So how have you been experiencing that stuff?
I did bite the bullet and go for the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pass, which got me the N64, Genesis, and then also the Animal Crossing DLC, which was Happy Home Paradise, which is kind of a separate thing from the regular DLC that they were rolling out for Animal Crossing, because there's a ton of content that they just added for free, but kind of bundled in with the whole N64 Switch Online or Nintendo Switch Online expansion. Like, you would get the Happy Home Paradise like bundled in for free if you just bought the online expansion. So,
okay. So there's like a regular update to Animal Crossing outside of the Happy Home expansion.
Oh, there's a massive like free update, which is like, cool. Honestly, I've been spending more time doing that because the free update is the thing that included farming and cooking.
Yeah, that's what I saw. Okay.
Yeah, and like I think all of the Harv's Island stuff, because there's a character Harv who has an island, and like his island got expanded to have more shops, more like things that you can build out and do more like features for things that used to be like randomly generated or random occurrences where there would be someone like setting up shop on your island. Now you can basically have a permanent place for them when they're not doing one of those weekly events or randomized events on your island.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, so like they also added in ordinances, which was a thing that was in Animal Crossing New Leaf, which just, could, like, there were, I think it's the exact same 4 that were in New Leaf, which were one that would prevent any weeds or like trash from accumulating on your island, one where everything was more expensive, but that meant that you could also sell everything for more bells as well. And then there were 2 of them that I was personally more interested in, which is the night owl and early bird options, where they'll just extend the hours of like the shops that are open. So
nice.
Yeah, so like back when New Leaf came out, like I was working during the day, and I would get home and I would play that on my 3DS, and I would just be like, yeah, I need everyone to be awake until like 11 or midnight just so that I can still do things in this game. And yeah, I did that same with this. It's just nicer to have like a little bit longer, a little bit more window. It adds basically nothing to the game. Like I saw a lot of people were upset that it didn't extend the hours enough, but I'm like, I don't need to be playing this game at all hours of the day. So
yeah, I was gonna say, it seems like the people that are playing this game seem like as soon as this was announced, it's like, I gotta get back to my island and start cleaning things up and whatever. And it's like, it can be such a time suck that like I feel like, yeah, anything that can maybe encourage you to put it down for a minute might be a good thing. I think
that's my favorite thing about the series, is that there kind of is like a ceiling per day, like where it's like you can't really do any more in this day, and like I like being able, or kind of being forced to like take your time with the game, which is nice. Like, but the Happy Home Paradise DLC expansion is kind of like, I think it's like similar to the spin-off of Happy Home Designer, which was, was that the mobile game that they released first before the
that sounds familiar.
Yeah, but it's a standalone. It's your job in this game. You now like but you can work as much as you want. You don't need to like do it every day or anything there.
Yeah,
you can do it at like as many times as you want during the day. You're not also limited like you are in other aspects of the game. But it is a very simplified but also kind of nice. Like you'll get a villager and they'll come up to you and they'll say, hi, I want to have a vacation home that's built around this theme, and then you'll just have access to like all these furnishings that you don't necessarily have access to, and you're just trying to organize and design a like one room vacation home all around this theme. And then like you get points based on like how well you do, and then it's just a nice little mini game that allows you to have a little bit more access to items that you might not have if you're not playing as aggressively as some people are. But
yeah, that's kind of cool. Or maybe even to encourage you to like explore other stuff that you haven't done in the game as much, or something like, oh, I didn't even know there was this in there, or these kind of items.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, because again, I bought it bundled in with the online service specifically because I was like, I kind of wanted to get that anyway. So I don't know how much it costs as a standalone thing. I want to say it's like $25, which I think is honestly kind of a lot for what it is, because if I wouldn't necessarily, unless you were a huge fan of Happy Home Designer and like really thought like that gameplay was really fun and rewarding, and like you do get extra items that you can buy using the like second currency that you only have on the Happy Home like Paradise Island. So like, yeah, there's more content and there's more stuff to do, but I don't know if it's necessarily worth it if you're not already getting it bundled in with the like Nintendo online service as well.
Yeah. And so obviously you're talking about the Nintendo online service, so you sprung for the expansion pack. So have you messed around with the retro stuff at all?
I have a little bit. I wanted to see how Star Fox 64 controlled, because the controls on a Pro controller are so wild, like compared to, because you can't buy the N64 wireless controller because they're out of stock because Nintendo refuses to make enough of anything.
To ever have any finger on the pulse of like the demand for their products. And we were talking about this the other day when we were jamming, John, but like especially when it comes to like their retro or like anything that's like celebrating their lineage or like anniversary.
Right,
it's like you
too. Like the NES Classic and the SNES Classic both came out right around the holidays, and then they like sold out immediately, and
instantly. And then they like second runs of them like later on, even after the hype
died down. Like,
but they still flew off. Like they weren't as in high of demand, but like they still got rid of those. It's not like it's not like you go and see them floating around on the shelves everywhere now because they overdid it. Like you still can't find them except paying full price. So it's crazy how out of touch they are with that stuff, but at the same time they're bringing us some of the classics in some way, shape, or form. Let's
be thankful for the scraps Nintendo decides to offer. Like it's a little irritating, but I'm able to play Star Fox 64 with a wireless controller on like just chilling out on the couch. And also I played a little bit of Yoshi's Story, which is another game that like I think I may have brought this up on the podcast before, but like the games that I would always rent from Blockbuster were Yoshi's Story and Banjo-Kazooie, and I never owned those games. So I know Banjo-Kazooie is going to get a release on this N64 Switch Online, and I'll be really excited to play that because I haven't played that for decades at this point. Because I never even bought it in the aftermarket or used like in any virtual console or anything.
And I'm guessing I don't know, but did you ever beat that one?
No.
When renting it? Because I was going to say like I bit my tongue for a second because I know how you play games. So I was like, maybe John did beat that one when he rented it. But I would never if I rented a game that wasn't like, you know, arcadey or what, like a Street Fighter type of game, like I probably wasn't going to beat it, you know?
Oh, yeah. But and honestly, like I can probably get used to new controls on the games that I haven't played as much, but honestly, I think I'm just going to have to wait until next year when they have more N64 wireless controllers, just because it's such a weird control. And like, I already have...
the 64 has such a specific controller.
For something that I've played like dozens of times, like any of the Zeldas, like it's just going to feel so weird. Like...
And I felt that way even with the what was it, the Master Quest collection or whatever on GameCube, where like just using the C stick instead of the buttons, like it just, I was like this. I'm if I'm ever gonna play Ocarina of Time, I'm playing it either on the 3DS remake. They did a pretty good job of like remapping things, but otherwise I'm gonna play it on 64.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that coming eventually, but it's not burning on my radar right now. But
Did you happen to give Sin and Punishment a try by chance?
Not yet, because I feel like that one would be a lot easier for me because I actually never played it when it was on Virtual Console for the Wii, so I have no metric of like what or baseline to compare it to.
Yeah, I remember I had it on the Virtual Console on the Wii, and I do remember it being like a weird control scheme where you had to get used to it, but I feel like it was just the nature of the game. It wasn't necessarily like a 64 related controller. It was just like... This game, like you're kind of strafing with the L and R buttons. It's like a gallery shooter, but like that's how you're walking. Like it's just a weird control scheme, but it's a really cool game. Really cool that they're bringing an import right off the bat.
Yeah, and so I'm hoping that we'll get more, I don't know, weirder titles for the N64 because they have Dr. Mario 64, which back when I was a kid, like I never got very far, but I really love Dr. Mario. It's one of my favorite puzzle games, and I'll be like, you know, maybe I can actually go through story mode now.
Yeah, and you know what I'm actually curious about that I didn't think about, but to the best of my knowledge, and I guess there wouldn't be any reason otherwise for them to have included this feature, but on the NES and Super Nintendo, like when you play online with people, which is another, I always forget that that's a feature of these games, is like, I can actually like play if we wanted to play multiplayer Star Fox, which is not the best mode to be fair, of Star Fox 64.
Fun.
It's fun enough, but it's definitely not the main draw.
Right, it's not the draw.
Of Star. But if you want to play Mario Kart 64, let's say, I wonder if you can sync up with more than two people. I don't know, because before I don't think it would let you connect with more than one other person online.
Right.
But since 64, you can play 4 players. I wonder if you're able to do that.
Oh, and I'm really curious to see if the flaw that was in Mario Kart 64, if you had, I think it was even 3 players, or maybe it was only when you had 4 players, there wouldn't be any background music on the tracks.
Oh, I sort of remember that. We would always play at my cousin's house mostly. Not that I didn't have that game, but we played it so much at his house, and he always put music on, like on his CD player or whatever when we were playing games. So I don't remember
such a
ton,
weird,
but
jarring thing.
I have a weird recollection though of like those sound effects being like really burned into my brain, where like I don't remember the music a ton from that game. So I wonder if that's why.
Yeah. I think it was 3 players because it was me and my sisters, so it wouldn't be 4 players. But yeah. One other thing that I've spent money on that I wasn't necessarily planning on.
I wasn't going to put you on the spot.
Yep. Was Genshin Impact. I have officially put money into it, and not in the subscription way, because there's so many ways to pay money to this game. Yeah. You can buy specific gem currency packs. You can buy this blessing where every day that you log in, it gives you items or money or like talent level up items or character level up items. That's a monthly subscription. So you can basically build it kind of like an MMO if you were, planning on like a budget for this, where it's like, this is how much money I'm going to spend. But I did the one-time Gnostic hymn option. There's also 2 tiers of that, and I didn't go for the higher one. So I spent $9.99, which there is one of the it's kind of like a season pass like they do on like Rocket League or another thing where, you have challenges that you earn experience for when you complete those challenges. And one of them's like your daily login, or you do your 5 or 4 quests that are given to you every day. And like once you do that, you level up to a certain point. And every time, if you do it without paying for it, then you get, the lower tier rewards for every level that you do it. But if you pay this one-time thing, then you also get the higher tier as well. And then you also get a 4-star weapon that you can choose instead of having to roll on the wishes and figure. So I did that once because I had already maxed out the season experience. So I knew I was going to get, if I paid the money, I was going to get literally every reward from that. It wasn't going to be like, oh, I spent money on it and I didn't even get to the max level of all the things. I had 11 days to go left in the season and I had already maxed it out. And I was like, you know what? I might as well just bite the bullet and spend some money on a game I'm put in hundreds of hours in already and enjoy. So I did it. I got a bunch of items that did cut down a ton of grinding and unlocked a bunch of stuff that would have otherwise just taken me, I don't know, another week to do. So it's, I don't know. I don't feel great about it, but I also don't feel bad about it. I'm absolutely paying for a game that deserves to be. Labor should be rewarded, but at the same time, I don't know if this company is necessarily the one that you want to reward or whatever.
Exactly. Right. It's like at the end of the day, are they just like another huge company?
Yeah.
That. Or at least they're operating in that same mindset, where it's like you're just funding the machine in a way, Yeah. But at the same time, it's like you said, you're having fun playing it, and it wouldn't exist if people weren't, if this model didn't work, essentially. But it's a weird fine line to dance. I find it difficult to I haven't really sprung. I've played obviously some of these free to play games where you can, I've played Apex Legends a few times with DJ, where you can obviously spend money in some way, shape, or form on them. But I don't know. I haven't really sprung too deep into any of those worlds, but it is because I'm kind of nervous, because I could see myself getting into something like Magic the Gathering online.
Yep.
I could so see myself in a different, if I had a different type of routine to my life, could so see myself like, hey, my nightly routine is just like doing this, and like you said, like having a budget, like every week I buy 2 booster packs or whatever. I could just so see myself making it a structured part of my life, and I'm like afraid of doing that.
Yeah, I think the good thing is that I don't know, I didn't necessarily feel a rush or anything from buying it. I was just like, yeah, that made sense. Like, I've put in enough time that like putting $10 into the game is fine, because it's kind of the same thing that happened with Fire Emblem Heroes. Like, that was another game that I had put in hundreds of hours into. And like,
was that the mobile game?
Yeah. And it was a really good, I mean, it was a very simplified version of Fire Emblem, but it was a really well-made game and really fun. And like, after I had played it for like a year or two, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to give them $5. Like, I'll get whatever the thing is. And like, exactly the same reaction where like I spent the money, I got the item or whatever currency that they gave in the game. I did the roll or gotcha to see if I could get a new thing. I got like a new thing, and I was like, all right, that was that.
Yeah. It wasn't. Do you think you would have had it? Because in both of these scenarios, it sounds like you basically put a ton of time into it, and we're like, okay, yeah, that is like, I did play this a ton, let me throw him some money. Like, do you think you might have got more of a rush if it was a situation where like you sprung for it a little earlier and you actually got to like see a little bit, like, you know, like you were saying in Genshin, it kind of cut down the grind quite a bit. Like, if you would have done it much earlier, would you have just been done with Genshin sooner and been like, okay, I'm leveled up to max and there's nothing else to do? Or maybe. Would you act? I don't know. I find that interesting. If you would have sprung for it sooner, would it have more value?
Yeah, I'm kind of in like, yeah, because I am at a very weird spot where like I've kind of done all of the content. Like, there's still side quests and stuff to do, but like I've literally finished everything there is to do in the First Nation. And I'm pretty close. I'm like 80% done with the second, and then I'll have like a bunch of side quests and other stuff to do in the third. So like, I'm really just biding time until the fourth nation gets released, and I have no idea when that is planned on to happen or scheduled to happen. But like, yeah, I've done like the events that happened that have popped up over the weeks, but I don't really have any like massive goal to accomplish. So I am kind of just like chilling out and like messing around with some of my lower level characters and doing teams that I'm not like, oh, I need to have my strongest possible combination in order to advance. I'm kind of just like fucking around and being like, what happens if I just put like these characters I never use together? And then it's fun and just like, so I think like, yeah, I'm really enjoying just not doing anything. And because of that, there's no pressure to like, I don't know, spend money really. Like, it was more just like, I was in a weird situation or an unusual situation for me where I had maxed out like the season level or the BP. And I was just like, yeah, I'll do this. I'm not planning on making a habit out of this or, yeah, we'll see. Like, but I don't feel the need or like, yeah, I don't know. This game makes me feel so weird. Like, it's so, because again, at the end of the day, like you were saying before, up until now, you hadn't spent a dime on this thing, and like, how much enjoyment have you gotten out of it? And again, we talked last time about like the predatory practices a little bit, or at least the potential for that. Yeah. But like, at the same time, there's like kids who, as long as they have a computer that can run this thing, and I know you're not using the most up-to-date laptop, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't need the most powerful thing, and you can play a pretty cool Breath of the Wild like game without needing to really spend any money on it. Like, that's pretty cool in that context. It is kind of that is where the free-to-play stuff does seem, but again, it's like, that's in the perfect like idealistic kind of world where I'm thinking like, oh yeah, it's like free games for more people to play, where it's not, it's more like, hey, if we make it free, then we can milk more money out of these suckers, when it's like, it's like, it's just, I don't know. But that is a good point, because like, if you do have the ability, like if you don't have an addictive personality, or if you don't have like gambling problems, like this is a perfectly great game to play for free and to do everything. Like I was able to like complete everything. Like I didn't get all the like past events that I missed because I came into the game a year after it came out. So I definitely wasn't able to get all of the content, but none of the content was needed to play the game and have a completely enjoyable experience with it. So
yeah, it's like I just wish there was some middle ground in between where you could be like, okay, it doesn't need to prey on the people who do have those like addictive personalities, but at the same time like can still like maybe, I don't know, because I don't want to say games need to be cheaper either.
But I don't think we would get this game unless it was.
Like, because games definitely don't need to be cheaper.
Yeah, it's so expensive to make games. Yeah, and it's so labor intensive.
And not to mention, I know we've talked about like the mega sales all the time on the podcast, but even just in general, like, you know, the games I was talking about, like the PUNKCAKE games are $6, and I'm a Patreon member, so they're $4. It's great at $4. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah, you can barely get I sometimes pay more for a pack of candy. Yeah. Like that's no joke. Like if I'm feeling saucy on some Jelly Bellies or something.
That supermarket, those like fresh packed ones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like the plastic tubs.
Yep.
Yeah, they're weighed out. Yeah. But yeah, it's just like, you know, it's hard to be like, oh, a game should be cheaper. So it's like, where is the middle ground? Maybe there isn't a middle ground. Maybe there is just different ways of making money off of people.
I know. Like it's a bummer because like as a whole, like games are so undervalued and like should be so much more expensive. But like it's also really difficult for then like, you need enough people to play the game in order to make the money back that you put into it. But like, you can't charge the actual amount that the labor, like it's such a fucking fun times. What a great ecosystem we have.
And well, to spin off that a little bit, I wanted to give a quick shout out to a puzzle game called Nojong, which is another game like we've talked about before. Like I think when we talked about Tiny Heist was kind of when we went into a conversation about it from Terry Kavanaugh. Yeah. We kind of talked about like, how does like a developer decide to make a game free and then make a game purchasable? Because like this is a game from a game designer. I think they might have collaborated with some other folks, but Ben Allen is the game designer. And they made another game called Skellamania, and they've like made Super Skellamania and a few other different ones. And the only one I've played is Super Skellamania, which is like, I think it's either $5 or $10 on Switch. I got it on sale at some point. And it's like a precision platformer, like with really expressive controls, kind of like some of those games I talked about a few weeks ago when it was just you and I, John, when I was talking about some expressive platformers. But like, again, that's like a commercially released game where like the previous Skellamania games were not, they were just like free itch.io games or whatever, or pay what you want, whatever you want to call them. But then this game Nojong, there's no reason this game should not, just like Tiny Heist, like, and I think the thing I said with Tiny Heist was like, if this game just had like a soundtrack, like it would just be a full-fledged game. Well, Nojong, that is not the case. It is not missing anything because the soundtrack in particular is just slamming. It's like this like jazzy grooving, like it sounds like it's more like live musician, like I don't want to say ape out because it's not all like percussive like that. It's definitely way more melodic. But it's really cool, but it's a really simplistic puzzle game in the sense, and it's called Nojong again because I kind of got sidetracked talking about some of his other games for a moment. But it's got this really striking kind of like almost like ZX Spectrum style pixel, like really chunky 8-bit pixels where it's not quite NES style, like everything's all one color, kind of like Hack even, or some of those games that like where like one sprite is like one color. And then I don't know all the rules of Mahjong, so but I know this game is like kind of a twist of Tetris and Mahjong. And you do have, so it's a block falling puzzle game. But there is gravity in the sense that like the tiles are falling from the top and you're just controlling one block at a time and in a pretty small grid. It's like only 3 columns wide. Yeah. And then maybe 9 or 10, maybe 12 at the most columns or rows tall. But essentially like when you clear, and all you have to do is have 2 of the same color tiles touching each other or more, and they'll clear. So the most you can get is like making one of those Tetris pieces that's like almost like a plus. Yeah, the T, yeah. Where it's where you can clear 4 at once. And then after you clear a certain number of lines, or not lines, but a certain number of clears, I guess, that will then create your hand. So you have a series of tiles on the bottom, which I'm assuming is the number of tiles you would have in a Mahjong hand.
Yeah.
And then it kind of works similar, like in the instructions, you can look at all the rules, and like it works similar to like a poker hand where it's totally different, but it seems like there's essentially like a full house and a flush, and a Nojong is getting all of the same color tiles. So as soon as you place a tile, like you can basically cycle through all the tiles that you have in your hand with the shoulder buttons, and that will swap what tile you're controlling in the puzzle grid, and then you drop that wherever you want. And then again, the blocks fall from the top of the screen with gravity, but once you clear them, if there's like an open space, it's more like, I want to say Dr. Mario works this way, where like the puzzle pieces will just kind of stay suspended in air after you clear them. So you can still do it Tetris style, where you can like move them to the side and like wedge them in underneath, but you really have to think about like the space. Like you're not really creating combos in any way, shape, or form. It's all about really creating the hand, because your hand will get scored after you only get to create 3 hands and then the game's over. So like it's not like an endless mode, at least not that I saw. Maybe there is an endless mode, but I wasn't able to find it. But you can play 2-player versus, and it's just such a charming. Like, again, there's just no reason this game is free. It's so polished. It's like
I've been looking at this while you've been explaining it, because it's...
Yeah, I sent it in our Discord, and I was like, John, this seems like a very much like a U game.
And
it's and apparently you can play online like versus. Like it says to use, like on the itch.io page, it says something like use Parsec if you're playing online, but it's got an online leaderboard otherwise. It's really awesome. And again, like the presentation it's very similar to Tiny Heist in that sense, like the pixel art style at least. But I just can't recommend this one enough. And there's the only review they have for the game on the itch.io page is a quote from someone on Twitter who I actually didn't look up who the person was, but it just says, I had a really great time bonding with my mom for an hour playing this game. Thanks for that.
That's cute.
So yeah, just a really awesome puzzle game that is also free, that you can play on itch.io, and I think it might be available elsewhere, but I'll have links in the episode description.
The composer is Anton Karatza, and
thank you.
The drummer is Yusuf Kellybrew. And
nice.
I knew love that those are the
drumming.
2 credits, like composer and drummer. I
knew there was live drums. Like that's why I was leaning towards that Ape Out description at the beginning, because like it really, you feel the energy of the live drums. Like it, and again, you're just playing like a relatively slow paced puzzle game. Like it does get a little quick by the 3rd round because the speed picks up after each hand that you create. Mm-hmm. But it's cool. Like it kind of like. You can just get all sorts of combos in the sense, like not in the combos in like a traditional puzzle sense. It's more combos of like the types of hands you're getting, because you're getting points for like if you're getting like the flush or the Nojong or whatever, but you're also getting points for like the symmetry of your hand and the like. It's just really cool. It's a really cool puzzle game. And then I did want to give one more shout out, like the main game I've been kind of just sucked into this week that I kind of didn't expect to get so hooked into, because at a quick glance, like it's the game's called Evertried, and I didn't know it was a roguelike. Actually, I kind of thought it was more of like a tactics strategy game, because it's like when you see the game, it's like the whole game takes place on like an isometric top down perspective, and it's just like kind of like this suspended like floating diamond grid that's probably 10 by 10 tiles, maybe 8 by 8 tiles. And it just the way it looks, it's like, oh, this is probably just some really like mechanics heavy tactics game, but it's really actually puzzle heavy in the sense that like it's got a really limited number of mechanics. There's a ton of different abilities and stuff that you can get, but it's really all based around movement and positioning. So you're really there's a few other things you can do, but for the most part, you're just moving either up, down, left, or right. Again, it's on an isometric, so it's like on an angle kind of, but you're using the D-pad to move in, up, down, left, or right. And then you can hold down the dash button to move 2 tiles at a time. So you'll like jump over a gap, like on the second set of like the second biome or whatever, there'll be like crumbling tiles after you step on them, or there'll be like some enemies will leave like a slime trail behind them or some kind of poison trail that you can dash through. But if you're moving regular style, and then same thing, like it uses 1 turn to like do an attack, same thing, you just press up, down, left, or right. So it has really traditional kind of roguelike movement in that sense. And then you just clear a floor. Once you clear a floor of all the enemies, you kind of ascend to the next floor, and you're trying to get to the 50th floor of this tower. Every 10 floors, there's a new biome. But the way that the movement works and the way all the mechanics play together and the way the enemies play together and telegraph their movements and like the way you're basically, for the most part, and again, I've only made it to the second like zone, so I haven't gotten that far to the game, although I did make it to the second boss. And the bosses are really cool, really fun, like puzzle challenge designs. And again, it's just so based around positioning in the sense like you never really want to end up in a tile next to a character, next to an enemy. Mm-hmm. You always want to be kind of like one away so that like they're going to take their turn and move towards you.
Right.
And everything, it's like really subtle, almost a little too subtle in like the telegraphs, but there are like little things where like if a enemy takes like 2 turns before it moves, like you'll see that it's like in a crouched position in the first turn, and then it kind of pops up before it moves, and then it has like a shield over its head if it takes more than 1 point of damage. So like really good readability once you learn the readability, but it's like it's really subtle. Like there'll be like a tile that's like kind of like this purple sheen, and that's like an icy tile on the first zone. But like if it has just like a little bit of snow on it, then it's not an icy tile. So it's like you really got to kind of like notice the little nuances. But once you get the hang of it, and especially playing handheld, I'm playing this on Switch. And I like playing handheld and having it right there. It's kind of easy to see like all the little details, but I'm just finding it to be like such a, like, I don't know, like it's very puzzly in the sense of like, again, you always want to make sure you're in a good position to execute the next thing you want to execute, but like you might want to trigger traps to kill the enemies, or maybe the enemies trigger the traps and they kill themselves or whatever. But like at the same time, you also have to worry about how quickly you're doing your movements. Like there's actually like a meter that's like ticking down the whole time. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it necessarily punishes you for if it goes all the way down to 0, but you keep getting stronger as you like keep filling that meter up. And then every like 5 floors, or maybe it's even just on a random floor, there'll be like a shop where you can buy different items. So like I just got like on my last run, got like a grappling hook. So instead of like being able to move 1 tile at a time, I can shoot all the way to either an enemy or an obstacle, or all the way to the end of the screen and pull myself over to that. And then the nice thing about that is like, so every one of your abilities, once you buy one of these like abilities or skills, they cost movement points or tokens or skill points. I forget what they're actually called, but you only get skill points. You can hold up to 5 of them, and you only get them by moving without attacking or dashing. So like you don't lose any points for doing either of those things, but like the only way to gain more is to just move a single tile at a time. So like you're really kind of juggling.
Nice.
I want to charge up my special attack? Do I need to charge up my special attack? For the most part, I've kind of fended, and again, I haven't beaten the game or anything like that, but I've been mostly kind of doing better when I'm not using the items, because I tend to like not overthink it, and I'm just like, hey, just stay 1 tile away from all the enemies and best that I can. But I don't know. I just really love everything about this game. It's almost got like a little bit of like a Moonlighter pixel art style. Like it's got a lot of that goop stuff going on. Especially when the enemy, like when the bosses come up, there's like a real cool like kind of splash screen that pops up with like the boss's name, and like a real like just kind of has a little bit of that, I don't know, that like fluid pixel look. I don't know how else to describe it, but the pixels almost look like they're like alive. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I just can't get enough of this game. I haven't been able to put it down all week, and I keep like pulling out my Switch to like, I still haven't played WarioWare yet, and I keep pulling out my Switch like, maybe I'll play Metroid Dread, maybe I'll dig a little more deeper into that, and I just keep playing Evertried. I can't put it down. Yeah, I really can't recommend this one enough. But yeah, I think that's really all I had to say about that, and really all I had to say about video games for this week. So if you're good, John, I think we can wrap things up. Yeah. And yeah, as always, you can find us on the internet at pursuingpixels.com. We're on YouTube. We have the podcast on YouTube now, all the episodes. And they even, YouTube apparently just changed it so you can't see how many people dislike our podcast. If people thumbs down it, apparently YouTube like doesn't show how many people dislike things now on their thing. So we don't have to get self-conscious about it, which is great. But yeah, so you can find us on the internet, and we will catch you next week. Otherwise, take care.
Bye. Oh, have you seen the TV show What We Do in the Shadows?
I haven't, no, and I've heard many people say good things.
We also just we just caught up on that because they just came out with a new season.
How many seasons do they have of that show now?
3 so far.
Jeez, man, time just disappears.
Yeah, but no, I really love it. I think
it holds up to the pedigree or whatever.
The thing is, like, the movie is like so good as a standalone thing, and the TV show is very different. Like, it's not very different, but like it's different enough that it feels distinct, and like there's absolutely like a story to tell over like seasons.
Okay, that's cool though. I like that, and I'm curious to. I don't know. It was such a great, but it is like, it's one of those things where I was like almost worried at first, where it's like,
100%.
Are they gonna like milk this? Like sometimes like just let something be good and let it just be that. Like, it doesn't need to be like, oh, that was popular, let's make a bunch of them.
Let's make an American spin-off of it. But
exactly.
But like Matt Berry is one of like Lauren and my favorite actors. Like he's from IT Crowd and Garth Marenghi's
like
Dark Place.
One episode. I've seen like one episode of IT Crowd, which I'm assuming it's not the guy with like the longer kind of spiky hair.
No, that's Richard Ayoade, I think.
Yeah. I was gonna say I know his name, but I know it's not that.
Yeah.
But okay, I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, Garth Marenghi's Dark Place is incredible. Like, it is.
What is that? Like, what?
It is a mockumentary series about a cult sci-fi TV show in like the 80s. That was from Garth Marenghi, who is a sci-fi author, and then like made an incredibly low budget. So it's like kind of like the special features of like a DVD for, and like it is. Well, I love it. I think it's incredible. It's so dumb.
Where is that is it like YouTube or is it like
You can watch it all on YouTube, and it's phenomenal.
I'll check it out.
It is
Garth Marenghi, you said?
Yeah, Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
Okay, I'll check that out. So I feel like you have a good knack at like finding very bizarre humor stuff that's like, but that's not too bizarre. Like sometimes like.
Max
I was just gonna say, and sometimes he'll find stuff that's like bizarre and it hits me in the right way, and I'm like, this is fucking hysterical. But sometimes I'm like, what the fuck is happening in this video, Max? And why is this funny to you? Oh man.